Alright, so you think you've been going hard in the gym, right? You've been pushing it and you've been really training hard, but you've seen no growth. And you're then beside yourself and you're like, what? Why am I not growing? Why am I not developing? You're not training properly. You're training optimally. You think you're training optimally? You're not. You're training like a baby and somebody who knows too much. If you've watched so many fitness videos that you're like, oh, I need to leave 1 rep in reserve for the most optimal lift, that's not optimal. Leaving 1 rep in reserve is nowhere near optimal. In order to make gains, you gotta train like an idiot. You gotta train like Forrest Gump would. And I've come up with a method called the Forrest Gump method. Now, you might look at me and be like, Andrew, what are you talking about? Forrest Gump method? Forrest Gump's an idiot. That's my point. If you told Forrest Gump to train in the gym, he'd train like an idiot, and he'd turn his brain off, and he would just do it as hard as he could. That's what you need to do. Alright, let's do this. Okay, so you know who Forrest Gump is, right? People describe him as the local idiot. He's not very intelligent, but there's one thing he does very well, is he runs until he can't stop. I want you to apply that same thing to weightlifting. So if you told Forrest Gump to get under a bench, right? Get under the bar and rep until he can't rep anymore, what would he do? He'd go to complete failure, right? And then he'd probably call somebody over to help him push the weight up. That needs to be applied to weightlifting, because when you are pushing yourself as hard as you can possibly go, you are maximizing the muscle growth, because you are actually tearing the fibers of your muscle and not leaving anything on the table. Remember when you were first starting in the gym, right? And everything felt heavy. Everything felt like 1,000 pounds. Like you'd pick up a 5, right? You'd be sat there on the bench. You'd be like with a 5-pound weight in your hand. It's just like, now, granted, there are people who started off better than that, but if you're like super weak and you can't lift weight at all, that's where you start. You start with a 5-pound and you're like barely struggling to get it up. Now, there's a reason why the noob gains are the fastest gains that people tend to make in the gym, because their body's so not used to working out that when they do work out and they do start pushing weight, their body has to adapt like really quickly, because they're like, oh my gosh, what is this weight we're pushing? What is going on? So they're like, okay, we gotta develop more muscle. We gotta put on more size. It should still be difficult to push up weight now, even when you're 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years into your gym weightlifting journey. There was a thing that David Lade did, and I'm sure he doesn't do this all the time, but he was with C-Bum. I don't know if you know who that is. It's Chris Bumstead. He's a very famous Olympian bodybuilder. So they were doing a workout together, and C-Bum is watching David Lade just like casually crank out reps, and then David Lade gets off, and then Chris looks at him and he's like, dude, too light? And he's like, and David Lade's like, no, I did the reps. And then Chris Bumstead looks at him and he's like, you should be pushing to failure. You should be pushing it as hard as you possibly can, not half doing it. Like that's not gonna do anything. I mean, it's great if you want to maintain, but if you want to grow, you need to push through failure, and on some exercises, push beyond failure. Think what Forrest Gump would do if he was in the gym. If you told him, okay, do the hardest weight and keep doing it until you physically cannot do it anymore, he would do that. Like if you told Forrest Gump to do that, he would be jacked. Alright, so I call this the Forrest Gump DLC. You remember when you played video games, or you used to play video games, and you complete the main story, and the credits show up, and everyone's like, yeah, you beat the game. And then you check, and you get a notification, or you check the eShop or something, and there's a DLC there. DLC, downloadable content, like extra content that you can buy or download to have more fun in the game. That's what this is. So training hard and going to absolute failure is excellent. Like, top tier way to train, for sure. I would argue it's the number one way to train. And you pair that with a good workout schedule and a good workout routine that works for you. Mwah. Perfect, golden. But there's more you can do. So I want to show you what else there is. I want to show you this DLC. First up is diet. You gotta eat in weightlifting. You gotta eat food if you want to get big. You have to eat a lot. I mean, you could get in shape and get abs by just starving yourself at home, but for me personally, I want to be huge. I want to look like Captain America. I want to look like Steve Rogers after the super serum. So if you want to look like Steve Rogers, not skinny Steve Rogers, you want to look like Captain America Steve Rogers. You have to eat in a surplus, which will guarantee you more calories, and it will guarantee you more food. That food will then go into developing muscle, and it'll go into developing your physique. Now, okay, this might sound a little crazy, but bear with me. As long as you get your protein in and you eat overall decently good food, having a couple filler foods like cakes or cookies or anything, it's fine. Or cereal before a lift, it's fine. And now somebody's gonna come after me and be like, oh, he said to eat unhealthy. He said to eat nasty food. No. Don't be a lunatic. Don't eat like ice cream and McDonald's every day. Like, of course not. You're gonna have a stomach ache and you're gonna get yourself sick. But eat decent quality foods. And then if you're like, oh, I'm not eating the calories, eat cookies, eat some cakes. What I like to do is I'll have ice cream or these things called Mickey bars. So it's basically a bar. I'm sure you've seen them if you've been to Disney World. It's an ice cream bar that's in the shape of a Mickey head. Those are like 200 calories. If I'm ever in a pinch where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna miss my calories by a little bit, I'm like, oh snap, I'll just eat a Mickey bar, bro. If your goal is weightlifting, if your goal is to be the biggest person that you can possibly be, you need to eat like a bodybuilder. This is how bodybuilders eat. They eat cookies, they eat cakes, they eat sugary things to fill their calories. They do whatever they can. They do whatever is necessary. That's what you need to do in order to reach your physique goals. And then you can kind of health max later in life. I don't know much about that because I'm 18, but I'm speaking for those who are in their late teens and who want to be extremely jacked and extremely built. That is the way to do it. Okay, next up is you have to recover. Like, you have to sleep in order for this to work. I mean, not in order for this to work, but in order to make the most progress, you have to sleep. And I would recommend sleeping 7 to 9 hours because you have to recover from your muscles tearing in the gym. You have to give your body time to rebuild itself so your muscles grow bigger and you feel more developed. You can't train balls to the walls of the gym if your sleep is booty cheeks. You can't do that because you're just wasting your time. Same thing too if you're not taking rest days. If you're just lifting constantly, you're gonna shrink your muscles. Unless you're on gear and you're taking steroids, or your name is Arnold Schwarzenegger, then you're fine. Then you can lift 3-4 hours a day, 6 days a week. Like, that's fine. If you're natural and not on steroids, then you need to sleep and you need to recover. How do we do this? what is the best setup for sleeping and recovery? So for me is I like to have a whole evening routine, and it gets me in bed every single night, and it gets me in bed at a decent time. Now, granted, it's not perfect. I'm still developing it. I'm still working on it, but this is what I got right now. I get a cold shower. I'll get out of the shower. I'll brush my teeth. I'll dry my hair off and stuff like that. And then I'll go to my room. I'll plug in my phone and I'll stretch on the floor. I'll stretch out my back, because I find that stretching out my back gives me a really good stretch, and it puts me in a sleepy mood for when I go to bed. So when I go to bed, I just kind of fall into sleep, and I'm usually asleep within like 15 minutes, which is great. So if you think that this setup is going to work for you, by all means try it, for sure. But if you think, I'm not a cold shower person, go ahead, that's fine. Maybe you're a bubble bath person, I don't know. Whatever floats your boat, you do. I want you to do whatever feels right and whatever's going to make you happy, but is also going to maximize your sleep, your recovery, and all that other things. All right, now that you know the Forrest Gump method, I don't want you to wait. I want you to take action right after this video. I want you to implement that mindset, the Forrest Gump, the local idiot tactic, and be just a simpleton in the gym. Just say, oh, I have this weight, I need to lift it until I can't lift it anymore. And then you'll be fine. And then pair that with the Forrest Gump DLC that I came up with, the extra stuff in the gym. You'll build a physique in no time. You'll be just fine. This method is like a cheat code to building muscle. I've used it, and I've noticed muscle being built at such a rapid pace. I've built muscle so rapid, I have stretch marks in my chest. They're right here. There's just lines in my chest because of how successful this method is. Don't wait. Take action. Your future self will thank you. And remember, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You got it.